Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for some other people to arrive.
Right. Can everyone hear me?
I think so.
Yep. Okay, great. So let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining us on this webinar with Mention Me and Trustpilot. We're really happy to be able to come together and share these valuable insights with you that we're seeing within reviews and referrals within the health and beauty sector. So our goal by the end of this is that you will have a clear view on what consumers are looking for right now and how brands are using social proof to fuel business growth in the current environment, and hopefully walk away with a few tools that will help support you. So before we get started into all of the detail, I just wanted to introduce ourselves and cover a few logistics. So my name is Jocelyn. I'm head of partnerships at Mention Me. So Mention Me is a award-winning marketing technology software. We power customer acquisition and retention for over 400 brands. So working with Trustpilot is really important to us, enables us to provide additional insights and solutions to further optimize our clients' customer journey through social proof. So we're really happy to be here with them today.
Cool. Hi, my name is Katrin, and I'm the UK Tech Partnerships Manager at Trustpilot, the world's most powerful review platform. So we're really excited to have started working with Mention Me as well, as we share a clear mission when it comes to the power of social proof and how it can help businesses grow. So at the end of this session, we'll have time for some questions. So please write your questions in the comments box below. Any questions we don't have time to answer, we will promise to get back to you on email. There's also a refresh button at the top of the screen in case you lose connection or you can't see or hear us. So with all of the logistics out of the way, Jocelyn, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So let's start off with the glaringly obvious. So since the government has instructed us to stay home, the consumer spending priorities and habits have changed overnight. So if we think back to last May, we're probably booking holidays, going for dinner with our friends, buying new summer outfits. And now we're buying from brands that we've never bought from before, looking for healthy food deliveries, watching skincare tutorials, and if you're anything like me, on 1,000 Zoom and Google Hangouts. So to understand what this means for businesses across the health and beauty sector, we wanted to take a look into order volumes, reviews, the impact of word of mouth, and overall brand reputation. So this has given us powerful insight into the impact of COVID-19 on health and beauty businesses, which we're going to be going throughout this webinar. But to start with, let's focus on just a couple of the top level insights that we're seeing. So overall, right now, we're seeing a rise in online orders for health and beauty brands. But comparing the last 2 weeks to the same time last year, we've seen a huge increase with 90 to 100% increase in total online orders. So when we look at the beginning of March, we saw a significant peak in consumers referring on their health and beauty brands to their friends and families. So this was a 183% increase. What's really interesting here is that it was predominantly down to health supplements that were being referred on. And then from the end of March until mid-April, we continued to see a steady increase of online sales, growing from 52 to 102 year-on-year increase. And now we're currently in the second peak of referrals increasing. So we're seeing 150% increase in referrals. But now, rather than this being predominantly led by health supplements, it's actually now being led by hair and skin and beauty products.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the current state of marketing? So there are two key themes that we've identified that are having the biggest impact on the effectiveness of marketing and contributing to the stability and growth of health and beauty businesses. The first is reassurance. So with an increase in first-time digital buyers, and in some case 40% of shoppers buying from a brand for the first time, consumers need to be reassured that they're making the best choice now more than ever. There are major factors like delivery time that are having an impact. However, our research is showing us that being reassured by your trusted resources is having a significant impact on how consumers are behaving. And the second is reputation. So reputation is going to impact brands both now and in the future. So with businesses battling to keep their companies intact during the coronavirus crisis, and in current circumstances, they may be tempted to neglect their marketing strategies and focus on survival, which is completely natural, but that would be a mistake. So effective marketing is part of this survival now and in the future. So if we start by looking at how consumers' need for reassurance is being reflected in reviews. So why reviews in the first place? So more than ever, trust in brands is eroding. So how is it that we know if we buy something online that this promise will be fulfilled? We worked with a fantastic agency on the Internet of Trust report in Feb 2020. I'll reference it a lot throughout this presentation, this webinar, so you can find it on our website after. Now, key findings here is that there has been an 11% decline in trust from ages 18 to 65 for consumers globally. So obviously that means that brands really need to rebuild trust. For some context on how things have changed over the past couple of months, we've also polled around 1,700 consumers, and more than a quarter of them are checking reviews more now than before the outbreak. So if 89% of consumers globally check reviews online before making purchases, we can conclude that consumers find confidence and reassurance in the voices of their peers. So I think that what's really important to note here is that authenticity is key. So as a company or brand, you can't fake it by censoring or deleting reviews. What is both positive and reassuring about this for businesses is that 64% of consumers globally would prefer to buy from a responsive company over one that appears perfect. So that proactivity can kind of outweigh any negativity that might be left. So consumers want to join the conversation and part of this discussion as well. They want that human connection and response. It's therefore no surprise that 55% of consumers globally would prefer to use an open platform, whereby it's neither in favor of a business or the consumer, it's just genuine. Again, in context of current circumstances, the vast majority, so 75%, of consumers we polled said it's important to know how companies are handling things during the outbreak. So what better way to do this than via answering reviews? So as people at the moment especially are losing faith in mainstream news media, political parties, they're increasingly turning to their peers to get information and recommendations. So where else can you seek reassurance from someone other than that's in the same boat as you? In fact, in our most recent consumer poll, we found that actually 1 in 5 people say that the trust they have in companies has decreased since coronavirus, which I don't think is that surprising. So these days, there aren't many things I purchase without seeking reassurance from friends or unbiased reviews. I think especially when it comes to health and beauty, we're so overloaded with choice. We have such high expectations. And I find that sometimes, especially in this industry, you don't know where to start, you don't know where to look. So consumer review websites rank second as the most trusted by consumers in the UK and the US to provide honest opinion about a product or service. And that is only below actually asking one of your family or your friends. So when asked specifically which sources they would trust to provide them with an honest and independent piece of information, consumer review website. Third. Right. So, question. How often do you read reviews or services? How often do you read reviews on products, companies, or services? That's better. Before buying online. So, especially when it's something that has a direct effect on your well-being, for example, vitamins or supplements, or has direct contact with, say, your skin, like a new moisturizer or foundation. I think this is especially relevant to new and emerging businesses who are launching a new product or disrupting the market, or I guess at the moment as well, pivoting from bricks and mortar to e-commerce. It's even more essential for these brands to harness the power of their consumer voice. So I've referenced an open platform before, but the majority of consumers do prefer that. And by which I mean users don't have to be invited by the brand to participate. So on an open platform, anyone is free to write a review as long as they comply with the guidelines that are set out by the platform. So in short, open platforms enable greater freedom of speech, and they don't allow companies to censor reviews. So you can't suddenly start deleting them or editing things. And again, I think in context of health and beauty, as a consumer, if I go online to check a review of a new night cream to understand whether it is effective, smells nice, free from nasties, which I literally did the other day, if these reviews are censored, then it doesn't seem to be a great deal of point for me to continue this practice as a consumer. I think that similarly, consumers need to feel that brands are having an open dialogue, which creates trust. The 3 R's, again coming from the Internet of Trust report, are essential in reviews. So these are recency, relationships, and realness. So when it comes to recency, things change really, really quickly. So consumers don't want to know what other people thought last year. They want to know what they thought yesterday. When it comes to relationships, consumers are looking for a human connection, highlighting the importance of responding to and interacting with reviews. And leading on from this, realness. Perfect scores and squeaky clean comments can seem quite disingenuous, I think, hence the importance of an open platform. I think we've probably all had a look at a website before or scrolled through a reviews platform where it all just seems a little bit too good to be true. And you think, who's moderated this? How do I really know? I think that when there are a few slip-ups and proactive responses from the business itself, that's what tends to catch consumers' attention. I know that's what catches my attention because I know that there are humans on the other end. Okay, so that's all very well. But how is it that we can see the positive effects of leveraging reviews and leveraging social proof? So let's get checked, a Trustpilot customer. They offer home health and wellness tests. So they're currently leveraging reviews throughout the buying journey to help boost that customer confidence, reassure them, and reduce doubt and skepticism. So they showcase Trustpilot reviews both on site and at each stage during the journey, the consumer journey. So we've actually seen increases of up to 130% in conversion from this. Whilst it can also allow brands to save on margins, obviously, if you're able to replace free postage or a 10% giveaway with this element of social proof, it can prove just as effective in conversion. So I've touched upon reviews. Now let's talk about referrals. Jocelyn.
Cool. So before we saw the world tip side upside down, we knew that health and beauty brands were already amongst the most referable sectors. So about 41% of consumers are likely to recommend. So what we wanted to do is look at, now that circumstances have changed, we've analyzed those order volumes and referrals for over 100 clients. And it's very, very clear to see that there's strong potential for health and beauty brands that have an online presence. And there's a huge amount of reassurance that customers are looking for from their most trusted resources. So their friends, their family, and their peers. So our research is showing that customers are more likely to recommend a brand now than they have been over the past 2 years. So if we dig a little bit deeper into this and why this is really interesting, there was a professor at Wharton Business School which recently did some research and found that word of mouth is a primary factor behind 20 to 50% of all buying decisions and 10 times more effective than advertising. Alongside this, he also found that it's about 93% of word of mouth is done face-to-face. So the question we've asked ourselves is, how is this being affected by COVID, and are brands still able to drive growth through word of mouth? And luckily, we're able to measure this. So the reason that we're actually called Mention Me is because our unique ability to solve for offline recommendations through our name sharing capabilities. So when you're recommending on a friend, you don't need to share a unique link or a complicated code if you don't want to. You can simply just tell them to mention your name at checkout and they'll receive the referral offer. So this allows for a much more organic situation to trigger that brand recommendation to your friend. So with this capability, we've been able to see how word of mouth is adapting to this environment. And surprisingly, the transition of in-person face-to-face to Zoom calls and webinars has led to, it has not led to less offline referrals. In fact, this is still our most successful channel in driving referrals. So this is providing further support that customers are having conversations about their brand experience and looking for additional reassurance from those trusted resources. So with that knowledge, what are brands doing to use social proof to drive growth? So I'm going to go into a few examples in a bit. And I think before jumping into that, it's just looking at those 5 key drivers. So we know that right now, adapting your marketing strategy to the pandemic doesn't mean you have to invest budget you no longer have. It can simply be tweaking messaging and updating imagery, doing a little bit for the wider community. So we mentioned earlier that in some cases, we're seeing 40% of shoppers are buying from the brand for the first time. So with such a huge amount of first-time buyers, how do we build that trust quickly and give them the reassurance they need to come back and also share with their friends? So with these 5 levers, social capital, stimuli, showing off, stories, and sentiment, we can do that. And these are still remaining true in the current environment. But we need to recognize that there's a big difference between strategic marketing and exploitation. So now is not the time to be hiking up prices or playing on people's fears or running tone-deaf campaigns. We need to, and ignoring what's going on around us, but we need to highlight what our brand values are and how we're going to improve the situation. So I'm going to start by looking at 2 of these drivers and 2 of our clients that are using these drivers to provide that reassurance that consumers are looking for. So the first driver is social capital. So we run referral programs where there's usually an incentive on both sides, so for the referee and the referrer. And our clients often fixate on what this reward should be. But actually, in reality, this isn't actually the key driver of success. Social capital is. So incentives can help that social capital because it might be that that friend really values the introductory offer, but they're rarely the primary one. So instead, it's things like whether you look cool for being associated with that brand, or whether the brand will help your friend do something that they want to do, or whether the brand will make your friend happy. So working out these drivers for social capital for your customers will really be a key element of success in your campaign. What we're seeing right now is that helping your friends and making them happy are significant drivers for success. So if we take a look at Huel, so traditionally showing that you use Huel makes you look good in front of your friends and family. So particularly with their brand messaging of affordable food with minimal impact on animals and the environment, this messaging is really pulling on those social capital levers and quickly giving consumers that reassurance they need that it's a trustworthy brand. However, right now, what we're seeing is people are also using Huel to help their family and friends because it's a solution that they don't need to go to the supermarket and that they can stay healthy. So we're seeing really positive results from that with that switch in focus. So the second one that I want to zone in on is Stimuli. So some products are naturally have more triggers than others. So if you're wearing a dress and someone likes your dress, they might ask you where you bought it from. Or if you've come back from holiday and you have a nice tan, someone might ask where you went and where you stayed. And what we're seeing is these triggers have shifted dramatically now. So amongst DIY, homeware, and gifting sectors, health and beauty have seen changes in how people are being introduced to their brand. So more and more consumers are looking for that reassurance of who to buy from and turning to their family and friends, reviews, YouTube tutorials, influencers. And we know that when this all started, the triggers were primarily around the health supplements, and we're now seeing this switch towards the hair, skin, and beauty products. So what we really need to ask ourselves when we're setting up these referral campaigns is, how do you tie in your product into the regular triggers of right now? So you have to be able to adapt that message to make sure that you're front of mind with what those triggers are now that are going to enable your customers to help their friends and family. So we've talked quite a bit about reassurance and how that supports customers in their buying decision. What's really, really closely related to this, and we found through our research, is brand reputation. So we've talked a bit about how there's lots of brands during this time that might want to neglect their marketing strategy. But what we've seen is that 92% of consumers actually expect those brands to continue advertising right now. So kind of like we expect our friends and family to be there for us through tough times, consumers are expecting that same responsibility, or holding that same responsibility to brands. So the brands that don't do that right now are going to face some severe consequences, and the other ones that do that do stand by us will prosper. So to start off on reputation, let's look at how reviews are impacting reputation. And to do that, I will pass it back over to you, Karen.
Cool. So in business, they say your reputation is everything. And I'm sure that's a quote you've heard before. But today, brands of all sizes must have a proactive reputation management plan that prioritizes ongoing communication and transparency if they really want to get customers to trust them enough to buy from them. So we have surveyed 1,700 online shoppers around the globe and have found some really, really interesting stats. So online reputation is the number one way to improve trust with customers. So 93% of consumers said that they read reviews before buying online from an unfamiliar company, which doesn't surprise me at all. Over 6 Google before purchasing. And people are less likely to buy if there are negative results on the first page. Needless to say, if I Google reviews for a beauty website or retailer and 1 or 2 star is the first thing I see, it's probably not going to entice me to then visit the website. So this survey as well shows that 90% of online shoppers have chosen not to purchase from a company because of its bad or negative online presence. Consumers pay attention to brand reputation, and most decide whether or not to take action based on what they hear or read about a company. So if your brand wants to connect with new consumers have a good retention strategy, and build lasting loyalty, a strong brand reputation is key. So to help you actually identify this, make it actionable, here are the top brand reputation trends you need to know. So firstly, customers care more about brand reputation, especially at the moment, than ever before. They are primarily influenced by information they find online. And as we mentioned, are more likely to trust brands with an active online presence. We know that they're there, that they're ready to respond, and that they're not hiding or shying away from anything. Secondly, the survey respondents said online reputation was the #1 way to improve that trust with customers. So your customers are always on the lookout for reputation indicators. 61.9% of online so that they would perform a search of the company looking for reviews if they were unfamiliar with them. So throughout this webinar, I really want you to think about something. If a potential customer was to do a review search on your brand or your business right now, what is it that they would see? And number 3, reputation matters most on the first page of search results. So here you can see our respondents' thoughts on whether or not they would buy from a business with negative reviews on the first page. So to put that in context for you, people are 200 likely to buy if there are negative results 200 times. If you think about your second, so how likely is it would you be able to purchase from a company with own negative reviews visible on the first page of the search? It's just probably not something that any of us would choose to do firsthand. So to put this, one of our health and beauty customers, Zoo Nutrition, is focused on one thing: providing high quality food supplements for their online customers. This commitment to customer satisfaction has launched them to an incredible 4.5 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot from over 1,300 reviews. So they've collected a lot of reviews. So it doesn't stop there with their Trustpilot profile though. So they can actually showcase their reputation using different Trustpilot marketing assets in social media posts or in videos. So as a consumer, when I see that, when I'm browsing online, it's likely to click through to their Trustpilot page and want to understand their story in reviews so far. Of course, on top of this, we see a great deal of referral traffic from a business's enriched Trustpilot page back to their site. So we're closing that loop. Now, one final thing to remember, if you can take anything from this webinar, is that brands have to realize that customers have access to their reputation anytime and anywhere. So it's just a case of using this fact to empower your brand or business rather than hinder it. Now, where we do see a lot of success is with brands leveraging reviews in combination with referrals. Jocelyn.
Cool. So I'm going to bring it back to those 5 key drivers that we've been talking about. So we've covered social capital and we've covered stimuli and how those have influenced trust and reassurance right now. Now I want to take a look at a couple others as well as a couple of our clients that are influencing reputation. So the first one is stories. People absolutely love a story, and this is extremely powerful lever because stories are often relatable, memorable, and can capture your imagination. So they also tie in with the previous levers we spoke about, social capital and stimuli. A simple story could be about the money that the consumer is going to save or the product they bought, but by tapping into a bigger narrative, you have a much bigger impact. So if you make it easy for customers to tell your story about their experience with your brand, then you can influence not only your reputation, but get a big boost in referrals and reviews. So one great example here is our client All Plants. So in the last year, All Plants rode the wave and rise of veganism and environmental concerns. They've built their reputation around this and made themselves a part of the bigger story by really building around their mission to inspire the world to eat more plants. However, with coronavirus, they have refocused their priorities to reflect the change in consumer needs, and have not only become a solution for people that are unable to access shops, but they're also been fortunate enough to be able to provide jobs for people that have lost their jobs in the hospitality industry. So all plans have repositioned their messaging and focusing on stay healthy and harnessing that positive sentiment. So they've seen a huge spike in customers sharing their offer. So while previously the referrals were driven by people excited because they were going on a plant-based diet, now they're excited to share in this moment because everyone is struggling with self-isolation and wants something to brighten up their day. So this nicely ties in with several of the referral levers we've been talking about, but it also really ties in nicely to the next one, which is sentiment. So this is the final one that we're going to talk about today. And essentially, behind this is that people tend to share things that are out of an emotional response. So already we're seeing clear trends in the growth for companies that have behaved in a supportive and empathetic way. While we don't know exactly what the future holds for businesses when we emerge from lockdown, I think what we can say with some confidence is that brands that persevere alongside us and recognize the challenges that we're facing and are doing their best to solve them will strengthen their reputation and prosper in the long term. So across all sectors, actually, many of our clients have updated their Refer a Friend campaigns to reflect the current climate to show their support. So some are offering exclusive rewards for NHS workers. Others are emphasizing on their products, how their products can connect with customers and loved ones and keep them comfortable. And we're seeing a very, very good response from this. So that sentiment is key, and tying these all together is really key. So I guess we've covered a lot today, and I hope that's provided everyone with valuable insights and actionable tools for you. We've run over by a little bit, but we still have time for a couple questions. And then any that we don't get back to, we will respond quickly to you. And we will also send you a follow-up of the recording of this webinar. So let's shoot it over to questions.
Cool. So we have one question for Trustpilot, first of all. Okay. Excuse me. So, as you say, reputation is so important, and Trustpilot shows every single review, even the bad ones. How, as a business, should we deal with those bad reviews? That's the ultimate question. So I think what's important to remember here is that no one or no consumer expects your business to get 100% positive reviews. So it's only natural for companies to receive some negative feedback. And I think the majority of consumers trust reviews more when they see both the good and the bad, which I kind of mentioned earlier. But I think in terms of sort of action point, don't ignore customers' negative experiences. You know, sometimes they might become irate or kind of leave extra comments. And I think that it's about apologizing and then providing a proactive solution. But I think saying sorry too much can also make you look ineffective and can lead to that customer losing confidence. So most of all, as well, don't promise what you can't deliver. So a bad review often can make companies suddenly start making promises, and you might think it's a temporary fix. When your business can't deliver these promises, it can actually exasperate the problem raised. So be honest as well. Like it sounds cliche or fairly obvious, but it gives them the real picture, and they can understand the problem and you can provide plausible solutions. And obviously it's not always what the customer wants to hear, but they will eventually respect you for telling that truth. So that is what I would say to that. And we also have one, we've got a couple actually, but we've also got one for Mention Me.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So the question is, it's a two-part question actually. So the first part of it is, typically in health and beauty, what percentage of new customers come from referral? So we see a range for health and beauty customers from 10 to 30% of new customers coming driven by referral. Now, it's quite a big range, that 10 to 30% is a significant amount. And what we see that heavily influences that is how you promote, when you promote, using these levers and understanding the messaging that you have to resonate with your audience. So there's lots of things to make referral work. It's not a simple thing to add to your website. It's very much a channel that you need to manage just like you would your other marketing channels. So we have a client success team internally that are all experts within this and work alongside our clients to make sure that we optimize that campaign. And that's how we're able to drive such high volume of new customers through the campaign.
Sure.
There was a second part to the question, so I'll jump on that. The second part was about integration. So how easy or difficult is it to set up a referral campaign with Mention Me? I actually really like this question because it's a very easy one to answer. So it's easy. We have a tag. There's 2 JavaScript tags that you need to put onto your site, which makes it very simple. That was one of the objectives that our founders set out when they started the company. They wanted to make sure that it wasn't a complicated process. So it is quite an easy process to integrate. We also have some integrations with Magento and Shopify that make it an even smoother process. So yeah. Is there...
Cool. We've got another one actually. This one is for Trustpilot. How do you keep check on fake reviews on your platform? So this is a really, really good question. So we actually have almost a whole department that work around the clock to safeguard and kind of ensure that all of these are detected. So whether that's like agents or legal experts, we've also got fraud detection, sort of AI robots, which is kind of far beyond my understanding. But they basically that have algorithms that are able to detect, for example, if the same comment would come up loads and loads, or really kind of anything, I guess, suspicious looking, because ultimately our goal is obviously to provide the truth and kind of to provide a fair and balanced reality when it comes to brands or kind of consumers' perception. So it's not like we want it to kind of be in favor of consumers either. And yeah, so I would say it's the combination of people, our staff actively looking at cases and analyzing them, and then the AI as well. So it's working pretty well so far. Anything else, Justin?
Yep, there's one more here. So do you feel that that this is a practice that is here to stay? I feel yes in relationship to online or any buying in the future. So I think I understood that correctly. So absolutely, this is here to stay. So a lot of what we're talking about today already existed. And what we're seeing is it's really amplified through this switch. There's so many new digital new buyers to digital. And so that need for reassurance and trust is only going to grow, and we're going to see e-commerce continue to grow. So absolutely, these are all things that we can practice both now and in the future. I think some of the key things that we need to remember is, like I was talking about the stimuli and those triggers, that you need to continue to adapt those practices to the current environment. You can't get complacent with just running the same programs all the time. I think that's it. Catherine?
Yeah, and I think that's it. There are quite a few questions here, but what we'll do is kind of go through them and respond via email as well. Cool.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks everyone so much for joining. We really appreciate your time. And yes, we'll get back to you and we'll send you the recording of this webinar as well.
Thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.